My offense is off today too. We're gonna go with that.
This isn't our normal music, but welcome, Hoosiers, to another disappointing episode.
Well,
of Doing the
clearly
Work.
I'm not on here either.
The first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 134th episode, recorded on Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. And we're being about as good as the IU women's offense tonight. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, joined tonight by my co-host, Kathy Amos. And today we'll be breaking down your Indiana Hoosiers 56-46 loss to the Butler Bulldogs. This brings their record to 1-2. But as we start every show with our banner moment, and Chloe, we were talking about Chloe. It's going to be one of those episodes, isn't it, Kathy?
Yes.
Our banner moment, Kathy, tonight, I'm going to go to the fact that the IU basketball program released today that Maya Mikaluski and Nevaeh Caffey signed their letters of intent for next year. They'll be enrolling as freshmen at IU. With the class of 2025 as our two main recruits coming out of that. So that's our banner moment. Our banner moment is because it wasn't anything from the game tonight. Our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, who includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and now the Dribble Drive. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You're bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you are supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelley School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, that's HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team.
Oops.
All right. And in news, not that there's a lot of good news right now about the women's basketball program. Hey, the football team's 10-0 and they're on a bye week this week. So that's what we got for news for you. With that, so I'm going to throw it over to my co-host here, Kathy, for the Amos angle.
Jeff, I'm not even sure where we were going to start here tonight. Yeah, I agreed. No banner moment from tonight. The closest, if I were hosting tonight, the closest I can come up with is, Shade Chesky finally, got the seal ripped off of her 3-pointers at Indiana for her career. She hit one tonight. She's one of 3. I think there's just a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on with this team. Not on the positive side. I was playing right now, and at halftime, they had almost as many points as we did for the entire game. That's, to me, the bottom line. You are not going to walk into hardly anybody's gym or at home and put up 46 points and think you're going to win a game.
Nope.
And I am really afraid to be honest, at this point, what is going to happen when we get to Big Ten play if we cannot figure out how to get some kind of semblance of offense going. It is not pretty basketball. I know I didn't get to see it, but listening to Austin do his play-by-play for me was enough to know that maybe I'm a little glad I didn't get to see it, because it seemed to be a continuation of what we did see against Harvard. They don't have much time here either to figure out what's going on, because they have they have a top 25 team coming into Assembly Hall this Sunday with Stanford, which we'll talk about later. But things are not going well for this season. First time since 2017 they've had a losing record, and I get it. It's early. It's 1-2, but you're sitting here thinking they should have been able to handle Butler and Harvard for sure. Even if they're close, they should have been able to pull out these games. And to be 1-2 this early into the season, there are just so many red flags for me right now. So I am a bit concerned. So that's my angle for today, I guess.
Well, and I think let's just start there, Kathy. We talked a little bit about this off air, maybe just kind of go back to how we did the podcast after the Harvard game, after what was a disappointing loss. And again, we didn't watch the game tonight. You and I didn't pay for the subscription service. And I find it hard to talk about pivotal plays, but honestly, the pivotal plays are some of them are turnovers, some of them are missed layups. But right now, I'm going to go here, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I don't make it as an excuse, but I thought Austin brought it up on the broadcast a couple different times tonight. This team right now, in a normal year, I wouldn't have said so. But this team right now, to me, it is very apparent that we desperately need a healthy Lexi Bargesser and a Lene Beaumont, because at least I think you get a little more offense, especially from Lene. And so have injuries hurt possibly affected the rotation? Sure. And have they hurt our offense a little bit? Yes. But I think I want to get your thoughts on that. Again, not as a make an excuse. They still should have been able to win tonight. They still should have been able to beat Harvard. But I think after these two games, what I see is a team that really needs some offensive firepower that they're not getting, because, and I've said before on this podcast, I think Lene has star written all over with her offensive game.
Yeah, I agree with both of that. And, I know we have a group text with, another friend or two about this too. And I pointed that same thing out too. I agree, especially Lexi. I understand. I don't think that she's going to come in and have a beautiful shot compared to what she had last year, but by all reports, it was better. But with Lexi, at least she was another guard that was supposed to be in there to help keep the offense moving. And I feel like we saw that from her last year. I thought she turned out to be a very, maybe not, you're not going to say top 10 in the country or anything like that, but she was a good guard for us last year, and she helped facilitate. And yes, to your point, we saw flashes of Lene last year with her athleticism and, her quote unquote patented spin move. We know that there is something there, and they're both not just us. It's not just the fact that they're not able to contribute, Jeff, right? This is prime time too, to be able to get your rotations down and get people used to playing with each other at, game speed and figure all this stuff out. And so it hurts their development. It hurts the team's development. So yeah, they were supposed to be two very key pieces coming in off of the bench for this team. And no, do I think necessarily that they fixed everything? But I absolutely think they changed the course of these first three games that we saw.
Yeah, and I'll jump to a number here, Kathy, get your thoughts on this. This is a program with Terry Moore and that's been built on ball movement. And again, I get it. You've had the luxury of some outstanding players, and I don't throw it all on the bigs. Was it nice to have Mackenzie Holmes for 5 years? Heck yeah. But where is the Grace? I should say where is. But somebody needs to step up and be the Grace Berger, the Allie Patberg, even to a certain degree, the Sarah Scalia, that will be like, hey, I'll put you on my back for a quarter or a half or even for a game if I need to. And I don't see that right now. And where I was going with this is tonight, Indiana had 6 assists on 17 made field goals. Yeah. And we didn't watch the game, but it was the ball sticking. I mean, was it, were we getting stuck with a lot of one-on-one ISO stuff? It was hard to tell, but 6 assists on 17 made baskets. First of all, 17 made baskets isn't enough anyway, but that's the rate that this team is normally played at. That's
right. Yeah. I don't want to say that their lack of assists is because they're not hitting the shots. They're at least, again, candidly, we listened to the game, but from what Austin was describing to us, there were a number of missed layups. Lily Meister ended up 1 for 8 on the night. And I don't think that those 7 shots that she missed were far away from the basket, like she was jacking them up. None of them were threes. And he said many times that she missed layups. So you got to be able to finish around the basket as well too, to get those assists. So I think it's a combination. I don't think the ball is moving. We said that when we finished the Harvard game, the ball is just not moving, or it's getting to where it goes too slowly. And now we have people not finishing as well. At one point, I think not at one point, the entire first quarter, we had 0 field goals outside of 3 3-pointers.
Right.
Missed every other one of our field goal and did not make a single 2 at all in that first quarter. Again, that you're not going to get any assists when people aren't making baskets. I think it's just right now, it is a plethora of things going on wrong on the offensive end. You're not getting the ball movement that you need. You don't have any aggressive guard play to get, even try to drive and get to shots. You don't have people finishing their shots. We're not shooting great from 3-point land either, although our numbers at one point we were shooting 50%, but you can't live and die by that when you don't have a complementary offense to go with it. And then you'd add on, we had yet another turnover bug. Was it as bad as the other night? No, we didn't have 26. Let's hope we never see numbers above 20, but we're at 16 again. So it to me, I think it's a plethora of it. They can't keep the ball to be able to run an offense. They're not running any offense with good ball movement that's crisp, and they're not finishing shots. It's just really right now all around is not going well on the offensive end.
And look at the second half stat here. I'll get into a number here. They did not shoot a free throw in the second half at all.
So it kept us in that game, or that kept us ahead in that first half. It was our 6 of 6 from free throw shooting, which again tells us, right, that they're not being aggressive trying to get the ball into the basket, either, from Lily taking the ball up or from our guards driving. We had all 6 of our, free throws. At least they made them all. So there's a positive. We were 6 of 6.
All in the first half.
All in the first half. It just disappeared on them in the second half.
Yeah, and the game, it wasn't entirely a game, but Butler goes 6 of 7 at the line in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was going to say.
Yeah, and then by the time you get to the fourth quarter, I mean the scoring droughts. I know I started writing them down. And let me see if I can find my notes. Into the third quarter, Butler went on a 12-2 run the last 7:39. And then I know I was kind of watching the trends that you can see on the stat line, and the current trend that in the game, field goals. Indiana, 1 of their last 8. You cannot go on long scoring droughts like that either against a team and think that you're going to be able to do too much of anything. I think at one point we had something like a 7-minute scoring drought somewhere in that second half. So
it was like 5, just over 5.
Just over 5. That's what it was. There it is. Thank you. I knew that I had it somewhere.
It was too long.
It was. Yeah. 5-minute scoring drought in that third quarter.
And we had the lead when that started. We were up 35-29 when that scoring drought started.
Yeah, exactly. So
and I'm sorry, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
I want to get your thoughts on this again, because since I'm quote unquote hosting tonight, I'm not trying to call out individual players, but I think you have to a little bit here. You look at the stats. Yarden Garzone had 6 shots in 37 minutes. Chloe Moore McNeil had 4 shots in 34 minutes. That can't be. And again, I understand there were turnovers, but Yarden is supposed to be possibly your best player, an all Big Ten caliber player. That can't happen. And again, I didn't see the game. I didn't see how they were necessarily a defender, but you look at it, and Sid didn't shoot it well, but she at least got double-digit shots. And so where Yarden and Chloe especially have to provide more. So does Sid. Sid can't go 3 for 12 and only have 7 points, but at least she was getting shots.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even just the shooting too. I mean, we shot, pardon the pun here, we shot ourselves in the foot a little bit in that fourth quarter at the defensive end too, because there were a number of back-to-back times where Butler was getting offensive rebound. They had an offensive rebound that they then went up and scored, and we fouled them for a 9-1. And then they missed the free throw, and they again rebounded off of that offensive rebound. Butler had 11 offensive rebounds to our 6. They out-rebounded us total 36-30 in the game. I can't, other than the 6 for 6 free throws, Jeff, I am having a hard time finding anything positive right now. And I'm really glad, that Coach Morin has proven to us over the years that she's been able to do this. But this is going to be something to dig their mindset out of after starting like this, I think. So,
well, you said in our group text that you and I were going back and forth with, it's time for soul searching. It's time for the come to Jesus meeting.
Yeah. And I know it's only 3 games in, and it might sound alarmist for those maybe who haven't, followed along and are just listening to the podcast or whatever later, but 46 points tonight. against a mid-major team. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Butler. Now we all have to be huge Butler fans and hopefully, let them go on a tear. The same thing with Harvard. We need Harvard to go in and tear up them in Columbia, I guess, the Ivy League. That we are going to need some help now from these teams to really make some hay, because this really hurts us. And at this point, I'm not even worried about what it does to like our net rating or whatever rating we're going to use to get into the tournament. I'm worried about the psyche of this team. And you had mentioned too as well, not taking credit, but I'm going to repeat what you had said privately, that it feels like, and I think you're right, that some of the players maybe have just gotten, into their heads that this was going to be easier than they thought it was, right? Like easier. It is not as easy this year as maybe it came to them the last 3 or 4 years, because they no longer have a Graceberger or McKenzie to rely on. And maybe they underestimated how difficult this was going to be. Bottom line, I think you have said it many times already in the last couple of games and on the podcast last time. We need somebody, either Chloe or Sydney or somebody from our senior squad, to really to step up right now and lead. And again, I didn't see the game, but again, from all accounts from Austin, Chloe did not do that tonight, and I fully expected her to do that. Yeah,
and we've seen it. That's the thing. We've seen her play better. And expected her to make that next step up. And again, I'm not trying to specifically call it out, but at some point, Yarden, Sydney, Chloe especially, who've been around the program for a while, have to lead. And they're the ones that have to kind of own the responsibility. And by the way, I'm not saying the coaching staff doesn't either. All right. Coaching staff, I'm sure, is doing some soul searching and having a lot of discussions, but the players on the floor have to own it as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's right. And we've talked about this, before in other sports, whatever. Coaching only goes so far. You absolutely need to have good coaching. We have seen good coaching from Coach Morin and her staff over the last 10 years. You also need your players to step up and execute. There's a lot of things we could talk about, which we'll probably need to get into in the off season around recruiting, and did we recruit right? And when I say recruiting, I mean both incoming freshmen and transfers, right? Like maybe Carolyn Striplin and Chesky was not the pieces that we thought they were going to be to fill this in. But there's probably something there with recruiting there. I don't want to get into it tonight. We're supposed to be talking about the Butler game in this season. We're at where we're at, but I think that's also, something to put a pin in that we'll have to watch after we get through this season as well.
One other number I'll throw out there, Kathy, and again, and part of it's because we have kids who are hurt, but Butler scores off the bench points tonight. Butler 24-7.
Right.
And,
again,
this is one of those where, Striplin was thought to be a good recruit out of the portal, and outside the exhibition game, or the Brown game one, I think it was, I can't remember which, against Harvard and now Butler, she hasn't done much.
Yeah. It was the first game. It was against Brown. We gave our Graceberger Hardest Worker Award in that one.
So, it's just, and again, like I said, I'm not going to, the coaching staff has to own some of it too, but there, there's, again, you're not going to change a whole lot of what you do. I think it's very hard at the college level to be like, okay, let's scrap everything we're doing and try to put something new in. But I do think that they're going to have to do a few things. They're going to have to tweak a few things to take advantage of what they got. Now, I'll say positive, only because, again, listening to Austin Render and looking at the stats a little bit, I thought second half, Shea Shesky got more aggressive, and it sounded like she was getting more aggressive off the bounce and trying to get into the lane and getting and getting some layup opportunities. Now, unfortunately, she was 5 for 10, and she did hit a 3, as you mentioned, or maybe Austin mentioned on the radio broadcast. I can't remember. We were talking in the text, but real quick, just kind of what's your thoughts? Again, we listened to the game, so we weren't watching it, but I thought Shea was trying to show some aggressiveness, especially in the second half.
Yeah, that's the way I thought that it sounded too. Again, she hit her first 3-pointer for us of her career, her Indiana career, and that was at 7:56 in the third quarter. And then after that, she rattled off some. It sounded like she was driving the ball and actually getting it to go in. There was, another play where Earlier in that third quarter, she drives and got one to squeeze in that put us up 30-26. She ended up with 11 points on the night. So definitely more production out of her than we saw the first two games. So I'm hoping this will be the catalyst for her to get her going. But I think there's stuff for her to clean up too. The 5 turnovers. Yes. I know she had at least 2 travels that we listened to, but she led the team in assists. So 4 assists from her. So, I think that there's signs there. And I mentioned this in the last podcast after the Harvard game. Sarah Scalia struggled as well fitting into the system. Shea is going to have the same problem. The thing is, this year, we don't have the pieces around her for her to take an entire season to figure out and come back next year and be fantastic. We need her to be fantastic this year. So that's where it is with her. And unfortunately, we don't have the time to be patient with her anymore. And she's going to have to figure it out. Not just her. It's not just Shea, but she is one of the pieces, I think, to the puzzle here that really need to be put together for this team to realize the potential they have, because I think the talent's there. It's just not gelling right now.
And Sarcastic Mike in the Workaholics brings up an interesting point, because I'm one that likes Wiseman too. Really thought she was a good recruit. In a game like tonight, again, we know Terry Morin doesn't like to play freshmen a ton, but what do you got to lose? And we're already down a couple of players. Can Faith Wiseman have played any worse than some of the others did tonight? I don't think so. And so why not see if you can get a spark from a freshman off the bench? I had hopes Jules would play a little better tonight. She did. She came in and got a quick 3, but she never really seemed to do much after that. So anyway, so Kathy, you got anything else you want to add?
Goodness, no. I think we've taken this horse and beat it enough. I think. I mean, the bottom line is you're not beating you by 46. No. I'll end on one good positive point. I think the defense was fine, right? In both games, the Harvard game as well. But in this game, we held them to 56 points. That's admirable, right? It is all of the other stuff on the other end of the court. I think that's really blown up in our face on a very massive level that is going to keep this team from performing at their potential. So I'll reiterate, I haven't given up the team. It's 1-2. It's early on. There is time to right the ship. I think they can do it. And I know they have the talent to do it. It's just now going to be a matter of how much the coaching staff can help them through it mentally. And do they have the mental fortitude to dig down deep and do that soul searching that we need them to do?
The talent's there, but I think the margin for error is a lot thinner than it has been.
100% agree. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
So anyway, Kathy, let's go to game ball. And I know it's hard to give out a game ball tonight, but we've always said we'll find some way to give out a game ball if we can. So since I'm hosting tonight, I'll let you go first.
Great. That's great. The other thing we usually do at the numbers is to update on where Chloe and Yarden is towards 1,000. I don't even want to do it right now. I have it tracked. Hopefully we'll feel better about it after the Stanford game, and I'll give an update then, but they're not a whole lot closer after tonight anyway. So for me, game ball, I came down to two people that we've talked about a couple of times here, at least going down the end where I felt like they were trying to be a little more aggressive, at least what it sounded like, than some of the other players. And that was Sydney Parrish and Shea Chesky. I really waffled between the two of them. And I ended up giving my game ball here to Sydney Parrish, and my reasoning. I can put the ticker up there too, since Sydney and Lily both have one game ball for the year. I ended up, for me, going with Sydney because she also contributed 8 rebounds. She only had 2 turnovers. The problem for me with Sydney was she was only 1 of 7 from 3-point land, but she did at least find a way to try to score, and it sounded like she was really trying. So that's where I ended up landing. I don't know that I feel real strong about it, but to be honest, I don't know that there's one person on the team that I would feel strongly about giving my game ball to.
Yeah. I went back and forth on these two. I was kind of leaning towards Shea, but I'm going to go with you. I think you've kind of convinced me here. The 8 rebounds, I think, really kind of what puts Sydney over the top here.
Right.
As you said, 7 points, 8 rebounds. She also had 2 blocks. And a steal. So, and she only committed 2 turnovers. So yeah. I'll go with yours here. I'll take your advice here and go with Sydney Parrish for the game ball.
Yeah. And the other thing was the 5 turnovers for Shea kind of led me away from her. So, yep.
So
Great.
Sydney Parrish gets her second game ball of the season and in the third game. So let's go on to our Grace Berger hardest worker. And again, so far here we have Striplin and Garzone with 1 each. If you're following along with us on YouTube and you can see the ticker. Kathy, again, I'll let you go first here since I'm hosting.
Okay. All right. Well, this might sound like I'm being contradictory to myself, but I'm giving my game ball to Shea Chesky. Mainly, again, for the same reasons that I picked Sydney Parrish. I thought Shea was one of the 2 players that it at least sounded like through Austin's game call that was actually putting forth a lot of aggressiveness. She got her first 3-pointer again for the year for us. She ended up with 11 points, was the team high scorer and the team high in assists. Even, there weren't many to go around, 6 total. She had 4 of them. Right. So I think it sounds like maybe, I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to give her my Grace Berger hardest worker award. And I'm giving her that because I'm going to hope this springboards her into a really fantastic game on Sunday and more to come for the rest of the season. So trying to end on a positive note for me.
Yeah, that was where I was going, because to me, the only 2 people really should get mentioned for awards tonight are Shea and Sydney. We already gave Sydney the game ball. So Shea's my choice for the Grace Berger hardest worker. As you mentioned, 4 assists. Again, the 5 turnovers really, were bad, but she had 2 blocks as well to go along with the rebound. So I'm going to go with Shea Chesky here because at least I felt like she was trying to make something happen in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great.
So Shea gets her first Grace Berger hardest worker award of the year, and we now have a 3-way tie with 1 each with Striplin, Garzone, and Chesky as our Grace Berger hardest workers. So what do we got coming up? Well, Stanford comes to town, number 24 ranked. That game is Sunday on the 17th, tip time, 2 Eastern, 1 Central on FS1. If we don't play any better on national television, it's going to get ugly. Stanford leads the all-time series 3-1. Last year, they blew us out in Palo Alto, 96-64. IU's only win in this series was a 73-63 win all the way back in 1979, in December of 79. Kate Pay is in her first year taking over for the Hall of Famer Tara Vanderveer. She's a former Stanford player, been an assistant since 2007. And Kathy, why don't you take and tell us a little bit about Stanford for this year?
Yeah. So far, Stanford has played 3 games as well. They are 3-0. Their first 2 were against Lemoyne and Washington State. And their third game, which was the one that really, I think, catapulted them along with some other things around them into that top 25. So they beat Gonzaga 89-58. They will be playing later tonight, UC Davis. But they won 107-43, 94-65, and then Gonzaga 89-58, which is the one I want to kind of key in on because, they're averaging 97 points per game, and that's a little inflated by the first 2, but they still put up 89 points against Gonzaga, which, in the last recent years has put in, a good women's program. So that is definitely not, a team to overlook. They did have 5 players in those 3 games average double figures. And then 2 people that I could tell, again, it's a whole new Stanford team from last year. I didn't recognize a whole lot of the names when I was looking at them. But in those 3 games, their leading scorers were Nuna Agara at 17 points per game, who's a 6'2" sophomore forward, and Alina Boscana, a 16.7 points per game. Nuna Agara is also leading them in rebounding at 6.7. So, I think maybe a lot of people were expecting with, a whole lot of people lost from Stanford from their last year and having a brand new coach, although she's been with Stanford for a long time, having a new coach that they'd have some growing pains, at least so far. And we'll see how the season progresses as the competition ratchets up for them. But so far they've been handling their business and they're handling it pretty well.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add in here, the Gonzaga, I think, will be a little down this year from where they've been the last couple of years, where they've been fighting to be a host. But that was also a little bit of a revenge game. Last year up in Spokane, Gonzaga beat a top 5 Stanford team, if I remember right. So a little bit of a revenge game, even though a lot of those 2 teams have changed. But that's a pretty solid win historically for them because, again, Gonzaga has been pretty solid over the last several years. So right now for an IU team that's struggling, and really kind of all facets of the game, but especially on the offensive end, they're going to face a very good team on Sunday that if they're not ready and they're not playing better, this could get ugly very quickly on Sunday. We hope it doesn't, but it has that capability. If you remember right, last year, it got off to a bad start out at Stanford, out on the farm, and it never got any better. And Stanford looked like the more prepared team on that day. And IU obviously was able to right the ship. But this is a situation where IU right now, if they're not careful, and again, at this point, they're not going to be favored to win the game, but they could be 1-3 going to the Bahamas. And now the Bahamas trip is going to look like almost a make or break for the season. Whereas beforehand, we were kind of talking about just win one game and at least get to the semis and see what happens from there. Now it's almost, you almost feel like you got to get to the final to kind of salvage this first half of the season. Because Kathy, you and I both talked about in our prediction show, we didn't expect 2 losses in the non-conference season, and we've already got them in 3 games. So anyway, so some news around the Big Ten. This going back since our last podcast, Illinois opened up their season with an 83-74 win over number 19 Florida State. Maryland, maybe with the biggest win so far in the Big Ten, or at least one of them, they defeated number 11 Duke 85-80. And then Oregon also with a big win that kind of catapulted them into the top 25 this week. They're at number 25. Oregon, a 76-74 win in Eugene over number 12 Baylor. And then Iowa beat Virginia Tech 71-52 in Charlotte. So, but for the most part right now, the Big Ten's holding serve with a couple exceptions, IU and Northwestern. But we thought Northwestern was going to be bad. Would be bad. So no surprise there. But right now, the fact that IU is 1-2 when everybody expects them to be 3-0 is kind of, and to a certain degree, the Big Ten's got to be looking at that being like, we kind of need IU to get up and going because everybody thought they were going to be a legit tournament team. And now they've got a couple bad losses that aren't helping their net. And so as teams play us, that's not helping them. So, again, those are all things to think about for later. So, Kathy, I'll throw it to you for final thoughts.
Oh boy, where do I want to go with this? There's just so many thoughts. I think, obviously for, I think, valid reasons, we've had a fairly negative show tonight. So I'm just going to sum up my final thoughts. They have to find a way to find offensive production. That is really the bottom line right now with this team. They need to continue what they're doing on defense. They need to figure out what they're doing on the offensive end and really quickly. And there's a lot of work to be done on that end for them to figure out. So that's really my bottom line. The lingering question for me, if we were doing a lingering question like a Assembly Call, is does the team have the mental, both, and when I say team, I mean the players and the coaches, the mental fortitude to be able to go in, dig deep, do some soul searching, have those team meetings that you need to have and figure out what is going on with the psyche of this team. What is causing the turnovers? What is causing them not to move the ball? But they have to figure it out, and they're going to have to figure it out here real quick.
My final thoughts kind of echo yours a little bit, but right now it's those individual players and the coaches have to look in the mirror and look at themselves and be, what can I do better? What can I improve on? And then they got to get in that locker room and kind of look at each other and be like, there's nobody coming through that door who's magically going to help us. The only way we're going to get this solved and fixed is this group in here. And it needs to really become an us against the world mentality. And in this day and age of social media and podcasts, it's hard to kind of tune out the noise, but they're going to have to find a way. They got to kind of get back to the basics, and almost strip it down, get back to what you want to be good at. And trying also at the same time, this I think is Terry Morin's biggest challenge, because right now I think there's a real confidence issue here. The kids know, the players know they're not playing well. They know they're not shooting it well. So I think they're pressing a little bit, but then they also know they're turning it over too much. So you've got to get some confidence built back into them. But it's kind of it's the catch-22. Do you play better because you have confidence, or do you have confidence because you're playing better? And so, but it all starts with those individual players, individual coaches having to look at themselves, and then looking at each other in that locker room and being, hey, it's us against the world, and nobody's coming through, and nobody's going to give us any pity party. Nobody's helping us except us.
That's right. They need to go back to that team, that gritty team that used to have a chip on their shoulder, not the one that expected to be ranked every single week. They need to figure it out, and I think they can.
So I agree.
I'm clearly off of my game tonight.
I will say one thing before we get to what's next. I think Ari texted us and said that Coach Morin hadn't come out yet for the presser, and he doesn't ever remember them having to wait that long for her to come out. So I got a real feeling there's been a really long team meeting going on in that locker room and about a lot of soul searching. So not surprised by that at all. So what do we have up next? We'll be back on Sunday, November 17th, after the Stanford game with the Doing the Work post-game show. So that's our next episode on the podcast. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that's youtube.com/@backhome-network. You can be, so again, youtube.com/@the @ Back Home Network. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logos. A big thank you to Bob Thompson for our music that you've heard throughout the broadcast. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU women's women's hoops again with you on Sunday. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
It bled over into our show. We need to work on our offense too, Jeff.
Oh my goodness. What the heck is going on?
I don't know. I couldn't find the right button and my mouse was flying around the screen and I'm going to say the ghost machine or something tonight. I don't know, but
Tony, whatever you need to get you through the game, man, whatever you need to get you through the game.
That's right. All right. Well, at least the game is early on Sunday, early-ish. So 1 o'clock for us, 2 o'clock Eastern. So
I hate to hope our listeners understand. We don't like to be negative, but to me, I think it's more just about being brutally honest right now. It's not a good team. And like I said, I don't know if I said it on the air, but we said it before we went on the air. I know even Austin Render on the broadcast said, this is not a tournament team right now.
That's right. It doesn't even look like a WNIT team right now. Like I just don't know who they're going to beat in the Big Ten outside of the few of the ones that are supposed to finish in the bottom. And maybe again, 46 points, not going to do it. But hey, it's Wednesday, so they have a few days here, to regroup, take a day off to mentally digest it, look at some tape, get back together and get some practice time in. So, we'll see what improvements. That's what I'm going to be looking for on Sunday is what improvements can they make over the last 2 games? Can they bounce back? So,
yep. So, hey, we're going to get out of here, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you on Sunday.
Yeah. Take care, everyone. Yeah. Bye-bye.